The Zephyrian conclave had spent 3 centuries perfecting the Nexus Citadel. Built into the heart of a dying neutron star, surrounded by gravitational anomalies that could tear apart entire fleets, and protected by energy shields that had never once flickered in 200 years of continuous operation, it was considered the most impregnable fortress in known space. The Citadel housed the conclave's most precious secret, the Quantum Consciousness Archive, containing the digitized minds of their greatest philosophers, scientists, and leaders. It was their species' insurance policy against extinction, their path to immortality, and the key to their technological supremacy over the galaxy's lesser races. Commander Vextai stood before the central monitoring array, his 6 eyes scanning the countless displays that showed the fortress's status. Every system registered green. Every sensor confirmed what they all knew to be true. Nothing could breach the Nexus Citadel. The combined military might of the entire Galactic Federation had tried once, losing half their armada to the gravitational shears alone before retreating in defeat. "Sir," called out sensor technician Yolme from her station, her voice carrying a note of confusion that made Vexithai's mandibles click nervously. "I'm detecting an anomaly at the outer perimeter." "What kind of anomaly?" Vexithai demanded, his elongated frame moving with predatory grace toward her console. "It's small, very small. Single life form, traveling in what appears to be a primitive chemical propulsion vessel." Yolme's 3-fingered hands danced across her controls. "Mass readings suggest it's from one of the carbon-based species, based on the ship's configuration and energy signature. I believe it's human." Vexthai's mandibles spread wide in what passed for laughter among his kind. "A human? Out here? They must have lost their navigation systems. The gravitational fields will tear their pathetic vessel apart long before they reach the first defensive grid." But as the minutes passed, something unprecedented began to happen. The small human craft didn't disintegrate. Instead, it seemed to dance through the gravitational anomalies with an almost impossible precision, riding the currents of warped space-time like a leaf on a cosmic wind. "How are they navigating those fields?" Yolme whispered, her voice filled with something approaching awe. Vexthai leaned closer to the display, his confidence wavering for the first time in decades. The human ship was using the gravitational distortions not as obstacles to overcome, but as a highway system. Where Zephyrian science had mapped the anomalies as barriers, the human pilot was reading them as opportunities, slingshotting from one distortion to another with a fluid grace that defied all tactical doctrine. "Activate the particle cannon array," Vexithai ordered, his voice tight with growing unease. "Target the intruder." "Sir, the human vessel is now too close to the neutron star's surface. Any weapons fire risks destabilizing the stellar remnant's magnetic field. The resulting cascade could—" "I know what it could do," Vexithai snapped. But he also knew they couldn't risk firing. The Nexus Citadel's position relied on the neutron star's precise magnetic field configuration. One miscalculation could send them tumbling into the stellar core. The human ship continued its impossible journey, now approaching the energy shield perimeter. Vexithai watched in fascination and horror as the craft began to pulse with a strange rhythm. It took him several moments to realize what he was seeing. The human was modulating their ship's energy output to match the harmonic frequency of the shields themselves. "Impossible," he breathed. "The shield harmonics are randomized every nanosecond. No organic mind could calculate those patterns fast enough to—" The human ship passed through the energy barriers like they weren't there. Alarms began wailing throughout the Citadel as automated defense systems struggled to lock onto a target that shouldn't exist. Point defense turrets swiveled frantically, their targeting computers confused by a threat that registered as simultaneously present and absent on their sensors. "Sir?" Yolme's voice was barely a whisper now. "The human vessel is requesting docking permission." "What?" "They're broadcasting on standard diplomatic frequencies. The message reads, 'Hello there. Lovely fortress you've got here. Mind if I come aboard for a chat? I brought coffee." Vexthai stared at the tactical display in complete bewilderment. Every scenario the Conclave had planned for, from stealth infiltrations to massive assault fleets, was represented in their defensive protocols. But none of their tactical computers had a response for a polite request for admission. The human pilot has identified himself as Ambassador Jake Morrison of the Terran Diplomatic Corps, Yolme continued, her voice growing stronger as professional training overrode her shock. He says he has a proposal regarding mutual non-aggression pacts and cultural exchange programs. As Vexthai watched, the small human craft settled into a perfect docking approach, its pilot demonstrating a casual mastery of physics that had taken the Zephyrians centuries to achieve. The ship touched down in their primary hangar bay with the gentle precision of a falling feather. "Commander," came another voice from across the bridge. "The human is... He's walking toward the main entrance, alone. He appears to be carrying some kind of beverage container and what our translation matrix identifies as pastries." Through the internal monitors, Vexthai watched a bipedal figure in a simple blue uniform stroll through corridors that had never known the footsteps of an outsider. The human paused occasionally to admire architectural details, nodding appreciatively at the conclave's craftsmanship. When Ambassador Morrison finally reached the central command chamber, he looked around with genuine interest before focusing on Vexthai. The human's face split into what their xenobiology files identified as a smile, a supposedly friendly expression that on most species would indicate aggression. "Commander Vexthai, I presume," Morrison said, setting down his beverage container and extending one of his manipulator appendages. "Jake Morrison, Terran Diplomatic Corps. I have to say, your security system is absolutely fascinating. Very sophisticated. We'd love to learn more about your gravitational manipulation techniques." Vexthai stared at the extended hand, his mind reeling. How did you penetrate our defenses?" Morrison's smile widened. "Penetrate? Oh, I didn't penetrate anything. I just followed the path of least resistance. Your gravitational fields create some beautiful flow patterns, by the way. And your shield harmonics? Gorgeous work. Very mathematical, almost musical, really. But the calculations required to... Oh, I didn't calculate anything," Morrison said with a laugh. "I just felt my way through. Humans have this thing called intuition. We're quite good at pattern recognition, especially when we're not overthinking things." He gestured around the command center. "You folks built an absolutely magnificent fortress here. Impregnable, I'm sure, against any force that might try to break in. But you never considered that someone might just ask nicely to be let in." Vexthai's mandibles worked silently for several moments before he managed to speak. What do you want?" "Well," Morrison said, retrieving his beverage and taking a sip. "I was in the neighborhood and thought we might have a chat about establishing formal diplomatic relations. The Terran Federation is always interested in meeting new civilizations. Plus, I brought donuts." As the human opened his container of pastries, filling the sterile command center with an alien but pleasant aroma, Vexthai realized that perhaps the greatest fortress in the galaxy had just taught him the most important lesson of his military career. Sometimes, the most sophisticated lock in the universe can be opened by someone who simply knocks on the door and asks to come in. The age of Zephyrian isolation, he suspected, was about to come to an end.